What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Today, I would like to revisit the topic of self-care. I've made episodes about self-care before. I made an episode a little bit over a year ago about redefining self-care for therapists. But as I was getting ready to film for this week, I felt like, it's time. It's time. I was going to list out all the ways that it feels like we're in a completely different landscape now compared to about a year ago when I made that earlier episode, but I don't even want to give all that stuff airtime. Let's just suffice it to say that being a therapist today feels different for a lot of us, at least, than it did even a year ago, right? I just rewatched that old episode about redefining self-care for therapists, and I still think it's a banger, but I also said specifically in that episode that I think it's not very helpful to just consider self-care as like a list of behaviors that we try to check the box of, like, check, I got my massage, check, I went outside for a walk, check, I did a bubble bath, like self-care completed, but that it's more of a sense of like prioritizing ourselves in the milieu of like all the things that are important to us in life. All the thoughts and opinions that I expressed in that episode, I still stand by them. But today I thought I would give an actual inventory of stuff I'm doing as me, Marie, to prioritize my self-care right now. This doesn't mean that I see this as prescriptive or that like everyone is going to find these things as self-care. It might be the opposite for some of you, but this is just what I feel like talking about. And you know what? It's my channel. I can do whatever I want. It was just one of those days. Okay. I just want to talk about what I want to talk about. And if it's not for you, I totally support you. Act of self-care, maybe to X out of this episode is totally fine. And I'm just going to do one long version for today's episode as an act of self-care. Imagine that. But also because I'm spending a lot of time working on a new training, a new Black Friday deal, more information to come on that. But I'm a little busier, so I'm just gonna do one longer episode this week. Part of why I wanted to make this episode is not only because, you know, we're living in a different planet, it seems, than we were a year ago, but I'm also noticing in conversations with friends and my circles and my therapist circles that for a lot of things going on, I have what seems to me, at least, to be a pretty different approach to how I navigate some of these things, for better and definitely sometimes for worse. But it's left me reflecting on how I decide to approach a lot of things about my life, including self-care. And there's also just personally, I'm in a season where there's something really heavy going on right now. Someday I'll tell you all about it, I am sure. Stay tuned. But yes, self-care has come front of mind for me. Okay, one of the top things that's come to mind, this is in response to therapist friends especially, but I hear this in a lot of places, is like, as a general rule of thumb, like, your body is for you. It's not trying to work against you. It's trying to support you and your needs. So, I mean, that might sound vague. So let me give some specific examples of how I might apply this mindset. I hear a lot of people talk about how, like, you know, my mind says that this thing is good for me, but then my body doesn't want to do it. And, you know, there can be some truth in that, but sometimes our body is trying to tell us, like, hey, I need more sleep, or I need more water or food, or, you know, you're dissociating because you're emotionally overloaded or whatever. And we respond to our body by kind of like wagging a finger against our body and saying, like, hey, body, get it together. We need you to be on point right now. We're doing something and you are dragging me down. You are getting in the way of me accomplishing my goals, or whatever you might be doing. And sort of like poo-pooing our body's response to just its natural way of being. This could be whether your body is, you know, functioning as well as it can, or it could be if there's some sort of health issue or mental health related concern that's impacting your body. It still holds true no matter what, that like, if your body is tired, your body is tired. It's not like trying to cause problems for you. So practically, this might play out differently from one situation to the next, but if I trust that my body is just for me and responding based on whatever inputs and outputs it's been put through, then I can just trust that and say like, okay, well, what are my options here? And problem solve it in a more matter-of-fact way, and skip the like really harsh inner dialogue that I could have against myself otherwise. And once upon a time, that was definitely how I found myself spiraling towards burnout, where it's like my body keeps saying it needs a break, but I just assume that my body is wrong. Just keep working through it. That's legitimately the equation for burnout. So your body knows what's up. It's 2 cents from a therapist, I guess. Your body knows what's up. That was the first item that came to mind when I was reflecting on like, what am I doing to practice self-care? So it's a big one. It makes a big difference. The next item that came to mind feels like it has an exclamation point on the end of it, because it's that thing where as I talk to friends, other therapists, hear from other therapists in the internet and things like that, I kind of go like, oh, I think I do this differently than the average person. Tell me if I'm wrong about that. But one thing that I do that I see as like a mega act of self-care is I use this list of items that I'm about to name minimally and strategically. So, what's on the list of items? Glad you asked. I'll break each of them down in a second, but first on the list, social media. I use it minimally and strategically when I do. Second on the list, algorithms, which when you get into it, algorithms are literally everywhere. So within the things that exist in my reasonable power, I use algorithms minimally and strategically. And the third item that I use minimally and strategically is AI. Again, like the prior item, AI is everywhere, but for the spaces where I can sort of opt in or not, I'm pretty minimal and strategic about it. Okay, so first, social media. Before you chime in the comments, yes, I realize this is a video that's on YouTube, which is social media, and so I use social media. Let me get back to that. Hold that thought. But putting YouTube on the shelf for just a second, if we're looking at Instagram, TikTok, what else is there? Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days, or Reddit, I either don't have accounts on those, or for the ones that I do, I am incredibly strategic about how I use them. I don't scroll. And that includes YouTube as well, even though I do watch YouTube videos. I don't scroll. I do have an Instagram account. I use it to post polls on occasion for episodes like this to invite your feedback. I use it to reach out to friends that I have through Instagram who primarily message through DMs. And occasionally I'll open the app to check on something. Like I have a favorite plant nursery, and I was curious to see if it was going to be open the day before Veterans Day. So I opened their Instagram to see if they posted about it. And sure enough, they were open the day before Veterans Day. And then I closed the app. I did not scroll. Once upon a time, I did enjoy a good scroll in the land of Instagram, in a vintage land of Instagram, back when you were only shown the posts of people that you had followed, and they were shown always in chronological order. And I believe without ads. That was a good time. Does anyone remember those days? Did I just date myself? Because that was probably like 7+ years ago. But ever since they switched it so that it's not chronological and it's more about engagement, and then they also added in like factoring in what your interests are along with how popular this post was. And then they also, like, now it's videos instead of pictures. And then the moment you open the app, a video is playing, not by my will, but the app decided I'm watching this video now. And my sense of agency is gone. That feeling for me when I open the app and already I'm watching a video, whether I consented to it or not, which I did not, I really dislike how that feels. And so it's pretty easy for me to not scroll because I hate it. I really hate it so much. And I realized that a lot of people scroll and you choose your poison, right? All the platforms are like this. Reddit is like this. And also now like every third post or something is an ad too. So it's not even necessarily people that you're following. It's like the algorithm just decides for you. It becomes this very passive experience. And I wish I had more ability to articulate in an informed way, but all I can say is when I scroll, I do not like how I feel. I'm immediately overwhelmed, even just by like the process of scrolling, let alone the content of what's coming through. And often the content is stuff that doesn't make me feel good. I think that's enough information about that for now. I could clearly, I guess, make a whole episode about this, but I won't. Along the similar lines, I've already touched on this. I try to minimize my interactions with algorithms. Now, obviously, like literally everything is an algorithm. Like everything is an algorithm. So it's impossible to not have an algorithm interaction. Like when I do a Google search, an algorithm spits out the answer. But I'm talking more about like that algorithm that feeds me what I'm seeing next as I scroll on Instagram or logging onto YouTube, the same thing. I've shared this before, but I love it so much. If you log into YouTube and you change your settings to turn off your watch history, then when you log into YouTube on your computer, which is the exclusive place that I use YouTube, I don't watch it on my phone. It's just a blank white page for your dashboard. It just says your watch history is off. Turn it on for us to recommend some videos for you, which I love. I also try really hard not to scroll on things like Netflix, though honestly, at this point, I rarely watch Netflix. It's like once a month I'll watch something. So algorithms, I try to make my use of them minimal and strategic. Similarly with AI, I'm talking specifically about like ChatGPT, the types of AI where you're directly interacting with AI. Obviously, AI is everywhere as well. I tried to experiment with learning how to use ChatGPT, and then I realized that if I do it too much, it's not good for me. It's really not good for me, honestly. So as with all the other things, I could trail off for a long time about this, but I'm also not informed enough or like enlightened to the research, if it exists, for like what's happening in my brain that I feel so awful. But all I know is when I stopped using ChatGPT, I felt so much better. I felt more like myself. I felt like it was easier for me to, I would ask ChatGPT to like help me brainstorm things. And then like I'd say like, oh, I have these ideas. Like, can you help me come up with like a potential video to make out of these 3 things that I want to talk about? And it was always worse. Like it didn't help. Not that ChatGPT was doing anything bad. I think it was the fact that I was like exporting this task that actually I do better if I keep that task. So I don't know. I can't really articulate it because I'm not knowledgeable enough. All I know is not using AI in that way is so helpful. Now, I know I spent a little while talking about that part of these different technological tools that are tools and very useful, but I keep my usage of them in a very strategic, minimal category. They can still be useful for me very much so, but I have to be strategic and have strict boundaries with them. And the reason why I spent so long on this is because that's the one that seems the most countercultural on this list. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I found a friend who relates fully to everything that I just said, to be honest. I know someone is listening. Leave a comment if you're on the same page as me. But yeah, it does just seem like people spend like hours, even a day, scrolling. So I also wanted to emphasize this because sometimes the list of self-care items can feel like more tasks to squeeze into a day where we already don't have enough time. And for a lot of people, if you took away the scrolling, if you took away the algorithms, the social media, the Netflix, etc., you probably would have a lot more time on your plate. You'd also be spending a lot more time with yourself and your emotions, which could be challenging, but you'd also have more opportunities to take care of whatever those things are that often just kind of, they get compartmentalized when we're using social media, we're streaming, that sort of thing. And that has its place. That is a form of self-care. But if we're exclusively compartmentalizing and not setting aside our like fun little distractions, then we can really start to neglect ourselves. That whatever is hanging out in there, whatever our body wants to tell us, whatever emotions are there, whatever thoughts are there, are free thoughts that we come up with all by ourselves without anybody else handing them to us. We don't get to spend time with those things when we are scrolling and streaming during all of our free time. So I think that that is honestly a pretty incredible portion of my self-care. If you are wondering what I do during my off hours, usually a craft project. I do like listening to podcasts because I can tend to the podcast while doing a craft project. And most podcasts feel less stimulating than, say, like watching a show, definitely less stimulating than scrolling social media. I can stay on one topic for a long time and kind of do a deep dive. And I also like reading. Right now I'm cross-stitching. And during the daytime hours, I spend as much time as I possibly can gardening, which is always an act of self-care for me. That is my top hobby. Another form of self-care I'd add that is also in the category of like doing less of something rather than adding a thing on my schedule is, at least compared to people in my immediate circles, I'm way more boundaried about how I stay informed about what's happening, whether it's like world news, national news, things that are going on locally, or even, what's happening amongst therapists, which I'll kind of keep tabs on through Reddit and that sort of thing, because a lot of you are on Reddit, which I love. I'll be really boundaried and, again, strategic about how I take in that information. It is important to me to stay informed, but there is something about kind of the continuous intake of more details and more information about things that gathering more information doesn't necessarily help us process or mobilize for change. One boundary that I've set ever since the 2016 presidential election that's kind of pretty regularly stuck with me is I will listen to the NPR podcast Up First, which releases daily, or I listen to it on the weekdays. It's a 15-minute podcast that covers the top 3 headlines. If there's something on there that I'd like to learn more about, I can look it up, but not in any extensive way. Most days I might look up a news article about one of those headlines, and then I let it go. I think there's a fear and a kind of cultural value of like, if I don't spend more time learning about these kind of major headlines, and don't get me wrong, there's so much crap happening right now. One could spend all day informing themselves and still not be that informed, right? Not be fully informed. I think there's this kind of misperception culturally that like, if we're not continuously getting as much information as is available, that must mean that we don't care. And it's not totally untrue. Like, if we really didn't care, we wouldn't gather any information at all. So if we care, we're going to want to learn about something. But I think this is a segue into the next item that I put on this self-care list, where I try to save my energy for my top values, which includes spaces where I have the greatest potential impact. So I don't want to spend this really valuable energy getting as informed as possible about, let's say, a major headline where I have very little or no capacity to make any significant impact on in this moment. I want to save all the energy that I could expend on getting informed on that to being informed about things I can impact that are also important to me. And maybe I might actually be able to impact some sort of positive change if I conserve that energy well. So some of it's kind of obvious, like I care about impacting my children's lives and supporting my spouse and my clients' lives. That's really important to me. But also, even if we're thinking like politically, climate change, I'm not even going to list it all out. There's things I can do that maybe look smaller, but they are possible. The best way I can kind of summarize what I'm trying to say is that it may be worth letting go of staying fully informed about things that are out of your reach for the sake of being able to impact things that are in your reach. And the cost might mean that sometimes there's things out there that I'm really just not informed about. But then if they present themselves in front of me and they need my attention, then I can inform myself, or I can invite somebody to help me become informed. So I don't have to like forever stay uninformed, but trust that like some of these things are just going to be underway and I don't know about them because I can't know about all of them. I don't hear people say that enough. And so I'm saying it to you. And I can already hear, like, even within my own brain, the judgments against that of like, it's my obligation to stay informed. And if I become too passive, then I'm just choosing ignorance, etc. So I think we can lean far enough into that mindset of like how important it is to not just choose ignorance, that then we can push ourselves to stay so informed that now we're overworked and we're not even able to attend to our life that's right in front of us here, right now, where we can do something. So that's Marie's little high horse. Okay. All right. The next thing that came to mind when I was coming up with my list of what am I doing for self-care right now is doing things IRL whenever possible and reasonable. IRL meaning in real life. Please don't hear that as me poo-pooing online interactions. I have some friends who I am exclusively friends with online, or I was exclusively friends with online for years before we ever met in person. I have friends who I was exclusively in-person friends with who've since moved very far away, and we very much stay connected. I moved far away from my friends when I moved from San Jose to San Diego, and I stay connected with them virtually. So this is not me poo-pooing virtual interactions or relationships, but there is something about doing things in real life that, again, I'm not informed to be able to articulate what's happening in my brain and in my body. But I know for me, when I go and show up to a thing in real life, I am processing it and I'm experiencing it differently than I am if I'm typing on my phone or even in a video call on my computer. It's something happens in the brain that's different. And also, when I do things in real life, there's a greater opportunity for like the plethora of life interruptions and interacting with new situations or people. Like you kind of always have to flex. And that's not to say that you're never interrupted. Like the internet interrupts or like my child interrupts when I'm doing things virtually through a computer. But like I might meet somebody that I otherwise would never have met, or just even outside of human interactions. Like I went outside and I saw a bird flying by. Like there's just an opportunity for life to happen at you in a non-algorithmic way that I think does something for me, at least, when I go and do something in real life. If I can go to the grocery store and put the groceries in my cart and pay for them and walk out, instead of getting grocery delivery. And about once a month, I do get grocery delivery when my spouse is out of town, and it's immensely useful. So I'm not poo-pooing these services, but if I can go to the store and pick up food instead of getting it DoorDashed, if I can go to the library and like look through the shelves and find the book instead of asking the librarian to put it on hold for me, and all of those other tools help us optimize and be more efficient. But I also find that I like my life less when I'm fully leaning all in onto like everything to optimize and like go virtual or long distance. If I can go out of my way to do something in real life, I feel so much better. And yeah, it takes me longer and it's inefficient. I get interrupted. You have to be flexible. There's traffic. There's real life things that happen. But I guess that's like part of why it feels grounding to me. Cause like if it's not me doing that, like, I don't know, if I got food delivered, let's say, that person had to sit in the traffic and they're going through it. And then now I'm disconnected from their experience. And I might just be like, why is my food taking so long? But when I'm the one sitting in traffic, I might be like, I hate this traffic, but like, okay, that's why the food took so. Listen, this is what I get for not scripting the episode because I'm just jibber jabbering. But these are the things I think about. And I have to imagine that there's some kind of self-care for me, at least when I allow myself to go do things in real life. And yes, make friends in real life and see them in person and like share food. And to me, this feels like it's along the same lines, but exiting my echo chamber is really useful. Like finding like-minded friends is incredibly valuable and I cling to them like there's no tomorrow. But on the flip side, if I only hung out there and I never exited my little echo chamber of life, I don't like what that does to how I think about people, how I see myself in the world. There's something really grounding about like the fact that like maybe, I'm at the coffee shop and I heard that individual express a viewpoint that I think is really hateful or bigoted, but then a moment later, they're holding the door open for me and smiling and saying, have a good day. Like that is the tiniest of micro moments, but like there's something that I think is really good for us to like be out there exiting our echo chambers in real life and not just online as well, because the online land could just be really damaging. Okay, I don't think I had like a rhyme or reason for the ordering of the rest of the items on this list. They're a little bit more quick fire, I think, than some of what we've talked about so far. But exercise, go figure. That one is one of the like classic self-care things that everyone talks about. But oh my goodness, when I can exercise, game changer. And I get that you have to have the privilege of time and some format to exercise. I live in San Diego where you can literally just go outside, but maybe you have kids attached to you. So maybe how do you get the kid, the baby has to be strapped in or strollered or something. So I get that it's not always simple. And I genuinely went with like very minimal exercise for the first like 5 years after having babies. And I exercised very poorly while I was pregnant as well, because pregnancy. So I had this chunk of time where things were declining in my body. I could talk about this for a while. I have been exercising very consistently for all of 2025. And not only do I feel better that same day that I exercise, not just physically, but like my brain seems to be working better, but also doing it consistently for, now months and months and months and months. Like I feel so much better. I don't know how else to put it, but there's something about feeling really strong. My brain feels really strong. And I get that it's a privilege that I have the time and ability to exercise. Because that felt pretty much impossible for several years. But it is huge. And now it's such a routine that like my brain kind of jumps back to that calm, grounded place, like immediately upon exercising, because I've just worked, it's like muscle memory in your brain, right? I've just done this so many times now that my brain's like, okay, we're going to calm down now. It's fine. The next one is also a cliche, but it's true. Like, go to bed. Just go to bed. And this one often goes along with the social media or the streaming, or like people are staying up late because they're on a screen, I think a lot of times. And if you turn off your screens, even if I'm like deep in my cross stitch listening to a really engaging podcast, I'm probably going to go to bed at a more reasonable hour. But yeah, going to bed, it's a great idea. Getting up early also for me has been very helpful. That is when I exercise usually. Or I'll get up and I'll get some work done, and then I'll get to like garden later because I got up at 5 and I worked for 3 hours and it's 8 a.m. and I'm like halfway through my workday. It's amazing. Okay, another self-care tool that I utilize a lot, but it took a very long time to just keep rehearsing this over and over and over for years before it felt like it was an easy access tool, is like whenever I feel overwhelmed or sick or overly emotional, and whenever anything feels like it's disrupting whatever my idea of a productive day is supposed to look like, then I ask myself this question, like, what is the bare minimum for me to do in this day or in this moment? Like, whatever that kind of bare minimum is of like, well, yeah, I do have, 3 clients on the schedule and I feel like I can see them. If I could just see them, but maybe I'm going to have to save my notes for the next day. And I was also going to, prepare this other thing for the future and just whatever is on the schedule. Otherwise, just like letting it go and being like, okay, if all I do today is I see my 3 clients, like that is the bare minimum, then giving myself full permission to do just that. And anything that I do beyond that, if I get to it, is just a bonus, has been really freeing. I could see the potential downside of like, well, if every day now you're just doing the bare minimum and it's become a pattern, that's telling you something. Okay, something's up, that it's not just like I was sick that day and then I felt better and then I caught up again. Or, I had a really emotionally tough week. So I went slow that week, and then, the next week was not as emotionally tough. So I kind of caught back up. If it's like you're doing the bare minimum day in and day out, that's definitely a great opportunity to seek support somewhere. Like that's literally what therapists are for. So, or, there could be something health related or otherwise as well. So it merits your attention. But a lot of times it's like, I just needed a day where I had permission to like be in a funk and like not really do a whole lot. And just the bare minimum was great. I did it. Well, as I often feel when I don't really script a video, I think this might have been a little bit all over the place, but I thought it might be worth sharing just in case there's anything in here that even just makes you think about your own self-care. Maybe nothing I mentioned is supportive for you to try yourself, but I think it is really helpful for us to kind of like be intentional about evaluating, like, how am I approaching my life? And are these behaviors actually supporting my well-being? And sometimes we think we're doing something to support our well-being, but like long-term, it may not actually be helping us. So it's just helpful to just like gently, curiously evaluate what we're doing. If there's anything that we're doing in our lives that, is a habit that maybe isn't serving us in the end, we can still be really gracious about it because it is offering us something, maybe it is offering that distraction in the moment when you're feeling awful or that dopamine hit to help you get through, it's doing something for you. It just may not necessarily be supporting you in the long term. So be kind and gracious to yourself if there is anything that's looking like, oh my gosh, that's really not serving me. But there's a reason why you're still engaging with it, or, that's become a habit. So I would see if you can identify and acknowledge that reason, or even if you can't, just trust that there's something going on that's what your system is turning to. We can be compassionate to ourselves because we're compassionate to our clients, right? We know how to do that. All right. Well, just the one long version today, my friends. As I mentioned, I am busy chipping away at a little Black Friday deal. So stay tuned. Keep your eyes open for that. I'm excited for it. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing. They have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform included for free for all users, and a suite of AI features to streamline your documentation process. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, thanks for joining me on this a little bit more meandering episode today. It's what I felt like recording. And whether you feel like you're taking care of yourself well or not these days, I'm sending all my heart emojis your way, wishing you well. Okay, for those watching the video, the screen just went black because my camera battery just died. So as an act of self-care, I'm not going to swap out the battery and start a new recording. I'm just gonna let the screen be black. Maybe I'll put a picture of something cute and you can just be looking at that picture. Sending all my well wishes your way, and I hope this is a gentle reminder for you to take care of yourself. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.